Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with today's video, which is 273, and it's a hand-stitched Scrappy December quilt top. And welcome to Hightower Stitching. Today what I want to do is look at fabric choices, patches, and I'll tell you right now, there are only 3 sizes: 2.5-inch squares, 4.5-inch squares, and then sashing that's 2.5 by 8.5 inches. Then I'm going to do a little short hand stitching, and then I want to go and show you go back to the room where I lay out on the floor my quilt at pieces so I get those where I want them, and remind you that if you have a wall, that's a neat place to put one up, or if you have flannel back tablecloth that will grasp your blocks, that's a neat thing to do too, because it can be moved. That said, here is the quilt that I'm working on now. And it was funny because when I was walking down the basement, I have a little tub, and I had put Christmas material in it because I don't need it except, a little bit time of the year. And so I had collected it all and put it down there. Well, I grabbed that because I had already seen this quilt in the magazine. And I like Scrappy. It's so painless, because this is just reds and greens and creams. This is a 64 by 64, so it's let's back up. It's 8 by 8. It's 64 blocks put together. And I didn't need anything that big. I didn't need a big quilt. My kids don't need one. So I'm put it down to a 25 blocks. So it's 5 by 5. And then in the directions, I'll tell you what you need for 1 block, for 25 blocks, and then for the 64 blocks. When I started emptying the tub out, I was dividing it into greens and into reds. And that, because that's the way this is going to fall, that one diagonal is red and one diagonal is green. So what I was going to say though is, then I looked at the jelly rolls, and I had a couple of extra strips left over from something else. So those were there, and this was another set that was, because white and cream is going to be one of your colors. And then when I got ready to start cutting out all the creams, because it takes 8 for each box, for each block, I remembered that one of the common little baskets I keep is 2.5-inch squares. And I got in there and I found a bunch more than this. So that was a great start, because that would take a lot. All right. Here's one block. It's got 4 smaller blocks in it. These 2 are made the same way. And these 2, which are 4 patches, are made the same way. This is going to be a 4.5-inch block. Then everything else in here are 2.5-inch blocks. That's one. Here's another one. And if you start to notice a pattern, you'll see that the reds run diagonally to the greens. And that's neat, that's fun. And then I did some fussy cutting with some of them just because I wanted to, because that's what people like. They like to look at a quilt that's like this and go, oh, look, there's so-and-so. Oh, there's so-and-so. And 2 things that helped make this easier for me was, they're getting worn, actually, is a template. This was a 4.5-inch template, and this was 2.5-inch template. They came together in a set that had a 3.5, and then maybe one more underneath there, but it's nice and thick. But you can make those templates and then use those for cutting, because I liked it for fussy cutting. I like to do that. So here was one fabric that I had, and I laid that little 2.5 on there, and that's going to be one of my blocks. So that's neat. the other thing that was really handy was I hadn't hand stitched in a good while, and I was going away, so I said, well, I'm going to take and make a bunch of those cream blocks, and I'm going to go ahead and make my 50 red blocks and take those with me so that I can hand stitch them while I'm gone. And I actually got all 50 of them done, because all you do is you take your 4.5-inch square, and you're going to add 2 of your creams to it diagonally. And that's where this comes in handy there too, because I can just lay this on there and get a diagonal line and do that. But some of them I did it before I got ready to start sewing, when I knew how many of those I needed. But I sort of did it as I went on that. The other thing is that I was talking about this one is that since I haven't hand sewn a lot lately, then I take and lay this on there and draw the line. And this one is a pen, so you can see it. Don't use a pen. And then I'm going to stitch that line through there. So these are neat, and you can find them in a pack that has like 3 different lengths of this in there. So that's good for different projects. And then here's one more. I just couldn't resist that material up there, and so that became, I called that red, and this was red, but it could have gone on either part of the project. Okay. Right now I've got the red 4.5-inch block. I've got 2.5-inch block cream with a diagonal drawn on it. And I will pin it. Sometimes these are short, so we don't need to, but when I first started, all right, and we're gonna take and make the corner, the white corner. I've got a pointed needle, a slender but stout, strong base needle, and I've got 2 strands of thread. It was spool thread, and I want this to last, so I put a knot in the end of it, and I start in. I didn't pick up my favoriteest needle. I could tell when I started. And then I'm going to go, and I would start with just one stitch, just getting used to it again. And I'd poke all the way down until it poked at my finger, and I knew I had gone through, and then I would come up. And then after I had done that a little while, I got where I could do that size, and there he goes again, and get 2. And I never worried about getting 7 or 10 or even 6. I just liked 3. And I was sitting there watching TV or listening to music, and I would run the 3 and pull it through, because it's not long from one end to the other. And when I first started too, that looks even, but if it's not going all the way through, oops, that went all the way through, then you wouldn't be proud of it. So this way, even when you start, look at the back a little bit, make sure that you're coming all the way through. And we'll get all the way to the end. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes I can balance on my knee or balance on the table. Gives me some leverage. Right here, this feels awkward going through the phone. And then I'm going to go back 1 and up to knot off. And I like to do 2. And we're done with that. I'll turn it over. And now what we want to do is take the scissor and cut off about down to 1/4 of an inch, and then open it and press it. And I've got the iron set up to press it, but it turns itself down every time I stop to talk. So there I've made a nice corner all the way across. Look at how the edges are. And that really happens when you open that seam. And on this, opening the seams makes the block lay really nicely. And you would take and repeat that with the opposite corner. And you're going to, for this, my little quilt, I needed 50 of them. But it went really fast, and 2 inches of the diagonal on that is really nice. Okay, now knowing that we've just did, and that's trash, it's gone. That's a nice thing to say. All right, now when I get ready, I've already sewn a cream to a green and a cream to a green here on the back, and it's laid them together. And I open the seams on this. I really like opening the seams. And then when I lay them on top of each other, I lay this one on top of that one, and I look and see that they look really close together. I take a pin and then diagonally go up, and I'm ready to start stitching. And you would start just like we did right here on the end. And I'll start and I'll go. And after a while, I got a sense back of what 1/4 of an inch was. And this doesn't look like one exactly, but I'm, like I said, through the camera. All right. And again, feel in the back. Look at the back to make sure your stitches are going good. I turned myself away from the light. Okay, and then when you get to the center, just stitch through it just like you did before and go all the way to the end. I'm going to hold on to it and pull my pin out so I can get this. There it goes. Sometimes I go back through it one time since that's where a little seam is, but it just depends how big your stitch was when you were there. And what I like about this is sort of like a challenge, because you want, see, that's it. And I'm going to stop with that because that's the same we've been doing. And then get all the way over there and then back stitch. All right, now here's the magic for me. It's when I open it up. Oh, yes. And look, they're laying right there where they needed to be. And then I would press that one open. And for example, this one, this was the 2 that were put together. They fit together, and then they fit together. So that makes me happy. And then press those open. So then you have the red, which goes up here also. And you have a green, well, that can't work. Goes diagonally there. Or it can go diagonally down here, or go diagonally this way. You have a lot of room to play with it. And the only place you wouldn't would be is if you did a fussy cut like I did on this one. And I used it in one of those, but I'm going to have to go back and look when I get ready to use it if I can count it as a green going down, or just do it as a block. Because you can see, like this one, it doesn't really matter. He's just so cute. All right, so then you'd have your pieces together. All right, now I'm going to go in and show you how I've got them set up on the floor and what you need to do to finish with the sashing. Okay, my best place is on this floor because things don't move and nobody uses this room anymore. But you know, it's going to be 5 by 5. So my first row is up there. And if you'll look at the red, look and see which direction it goes. The first one on the first row, it points to the left. Then look at the second one on that row. It points to the right. And it continues going back and forth like that till you get to the end. But now look at row 2. The red isn't pointing to the left anymore. Now it's pointing to the right. And the next one's pointing to the left. It's reversed the first row. And then the third row would have it going off to the right. All right. And then we're going to look at the sashing. Now the sashings are cream and white and decorated, print fabrics. But the one thing that happens first is that you have, between the long strips, you have 2.5-inch blocks. So you make a bunch of green, and in this case, all mine are going to be the same green. And you start, for example, in the corner, it could be red or green, and you put the green there, and you put a red here, and I put a green back down on the next one. Now, you're going to alternate those. So if that one's green, next one's red. You can see where all of this color comes into play. It's the way everything's been set up. And so you alternate those, then go to the next row with that was red, the next one's going to be green. And then the fun part is the sashing. You get it set up, and like I've got white pieces. I've got cream pieces. I think I'll put him right there. And what you're going to do is you're just going to lay them out. And then I did some fussy cuts. So this guy's going to have to go across. And for right now, I'm just going to put him right there. And then I have some that are holiday. And this is funny because this is going to add to the whole look of what you've got. And once you get all your pieces laid out, or a row laid out, you can go ahead and sew that row together. Because what's happening to me right now is overload with all the colors, and I'm going, oh, how can this look good? And my husband used to tell me, he said, just keep going, just keep going. And he was always right, because when you get them sewn together, it really starts coming together. But you can use all kinds of prints in there, but then you just balance them with your solids. Like, that's not really too good to me. Oh, that makes me happy. So that one's down there. So I could actually be ready if I wanted to do row 1 to put it together. And let's see. I think that's about it. So I came back to the magazine picture so that you can see how it does look when it's finished. Just have fun picking your fabrics out and then putting them in stacks, because you're going to have lots of 2.5-inch squares, like mine, 54.5-inch squares, and then but a lot of sashing because it goes all the way around. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I hope you enjoyed that. If I forgot anything, I'll put it in the notes, and it'll have a time code. And I'll put the sizes for 1 block, 25 blocks, how many of each shape you would need. Thank you for watching. And if you're going to keep on sewing and enjoy everything and got anything out of this, please hit subscribe and like. Thank you.